Next generation of cybersecurity professionals. We hold most of our meetings at educational institutions throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, not throughout the Commonwealth, but throughout the Metro Richmond area. VCU, J. Sergeant Reynolds, Max Potential, we consider this an educational environment, and we're much appreciative to Kim for hosting this meeting. VCU, Chesterfield Technical Center. So our mission is to foster that next generation. To that end, we have a 2-hour meeting last Thursday of every month. The first half is dedicated to some type of educational component, like the presentation we're going to have to make on a cyber simulation. We've had other in the past, including how to build a Raspberry Pi. We've had presentations ranging from risk assessments to penetration testing. We've had other companies come out and present case studies that are relative to cybersecurity. We as an organization strive to make sure that we are feeding the pipeline. To that end, last year we awarded 5 $1,000 scholarships to the, I'm sorry?
Backgrounders.
To the cybersecurity challenge, scholarship challenge. And those 5 scholarships were awarded to local high school students that want to pursue a career in cybersecurity. I'm gonna, at this point, I'm gonna introduce my Vice President, Chris Sherman. All right, our Treasurer, Michael Stapleton.
I apologize for being rude. I'm running a chat session, so if everybody's not aware, we do a Zoom meeting as part of each of our monthly meetings. We are streaming it live from the camera over here where Michael is sitting, so if you're sitting right in front of it, say hi. And then I'm running the chat session.
And James Walters in the back, our Secretary.
How's it party? You introduce people.
All right, without further ado, where is Don? I saw him.
Some walking the door there.
I think he's, I have to take a quick break.
Okay, so are there any questions before we get started?
Do we want to talk about the chapter challenge?
Please.
Okay. So, Ivan mentioned, and for those that have been here, I've heard this field a bunch of times, so I apologize. Others that haven't heard it, it's brand new and it's kind of like new. So one of the other ways that we, Ivan already talked about the scholarships that we have issued. Right now we are in our pledge time frame. So we are working with organizations and companies to try to solicit donations to the Chapter Challenge. What the Chapter Challenge is the ISC Squared Foundation, which is called the Center for Cyber Safety and Education, issues a challenge to all of the chapters worldwide. I think it's actually nationwide, so here in the U.S., to raise $1,500 to give as a scholarship to local students. Of that $1,500, the center takes $500 to maintain the application portal that students go through to register and apply for the scholarships. And then they also use it to provide more nationwide type scholarships. So last year, Ivan already mentioned, we raised more than $5,000 for scholarships. We gave out 4 $1,000 scholarships. We still have a $1,000 scholarship that is left to issue to a qualifying student. In order to qualify, they have to be a high school junior or senior, and then there is a pretty rigorous questionnaire that they have to complete as well as an essay, and then they have to have references. They also have to be going to college for a cybersecurity degree, so it does have some stipulations around the scholarship. We gave 3 of them through the portal last year, $1,000, and we gave 1 away at Hack for Troops as a scholarship as well. So like I mentioned, we have $1,000 scholarship left. The last year we raised over $5,000. This year we set our goal at $10,000, which is very aggressive considering we barely made half of that last year. So what we need is we need help from organizations. Every company is a security company, whether they like to admit it or not. They're a security company. They benefit from having more cybersecurity professionals in the industry. And so by doing that, we are rewarding local students in the area with scholarship funds to promote their education in cybersecurity. So we partnered with, they're now SEGRA, so Lumos Networks, now SEGRA. They've given $1,500 every year for the last 3 years, ever since we started doing the challenge. Northrop Grumman provided us with $2,500 last year. We lost that partnership since they are no longer actively present in the area. So we have to fill that $250 or $2,500 void in addition to setting an aggressive goal. So those 2 organizations, I know the way that they did it was through marketing funds. So each of them has a pool of funds that they can use for marketing. And the way that we help them with the marketing is we put their logos, the company's logo on our chapter page, as well as in our pamphlet. If anybody hasn't seen a pamphlet, come talk to myself, Ivan, Michael, James, John is here as well. Come see one of us. We'll give you a pamphlet that has their logos on it, so that if you have an opportunity with your company to provide $1,000 or whatever, any little bit is helpful. The board of directors has already each given their pledge, which is $100 per person. So we have already, as part of our mission, already contributed $100. But the challenge out to everybody else, either work with your organization, your company, see if they have an opportunity to help us in our efforts. And if you go out to the website, all of the instructions are there. The last thing I'll say on that, I've already said more than I thought I would. Our chapter, the Richmond chapter, is being recognized for its contributions to the chapter challenge. Over the last 2 years, we are the only chapter that has participated, which I'm reluctant and more so embarrassed to say, because there are so many chapters and ours is the only one that has participated. But the reason that's important is because
the only one that participated.
And the year before that. The chapter that was part of it dropped out.
Yep.
So this year, I'm hoping that other organizations participate, but we are, as a chapter, being recognized in the Info Security Professionals magazine that ISC Spread puts out. If you haven't been to the website, it's out there. We pasted it on our page. But we were also asked, I was asked to come to Security Congress in Orlando in October to talk about how chapters can be more involved in the community because of that participation, plus our activities with Cyber Patriot, IT advisory committees that we're all on, and support and everything else. So,
Piggyback on what you were saying, if you use marketing funds, right, you're going to have exposure to the cream of the crop in cybersecurity at our meetings. We're going to mention your company's name. We're going to mention your company's name at ISC Square Congress. You're going to get so much exposure by contributing to the scholarship challenge that no amount of money in marketing can pay for.
I mean, it's going to be a targeted audience. Your company is, every company is a security company, but if you're primarily focused, like my company with Atos, as the managed security services provider to the Commonwealth, we are a security focused company. I'm already going to that well, listening funds from them, and making sure that that's all I want to say about that.
Thank you. Without further ado, Don Murdoch. I work with the guy, Don Murdoch.
Oh, okay, all right. Hi, everybody.
Hey, welcome.
The important next year, I'm taking a class from Derek Van Diggers.
Does anybody know Don?
2 hours down the road, so I'm talking in the Belgian accent. It's fun. And that's the filler, because I can't remember what my HDMI port is, because I haven't secured a year. It's on this side. Mike, where's the HDMI port on this side?
Got it?
Yeah. Oh, I got it. Does the Mac on the bottom of the screen, right? Seems already. Does anybody remember Johnny Quest? This is the villain. So we have to push the button to do that. Oh, the screen's changed, Rose.
There we go. Nope, just lost it. There we go. Stand back there, Kim.
PowerPoint, did you guys read that? I mean, that's like, you guys, what is this, like 9 million K? Okay, now I gotta push the button that makes it. This is an experience. All right, show, play from start. Right, so we have to put it back. Excellent, excellent. My name's Tom Murdoch. As I've been around with Ivan. Ivan and I and Mike, we used to work together for many, many moons, doing a lot of cyber business. The company that we all work for started an MSSP practice, and that's how I met these guys. But right now, what do you think? Introductions. I've been in the business for a long time.
How long?
I graduated in 1989, and I graduated with a computer science degree, and I'm actually doing computer science stuff. So statistically, it was like 3% of the people actually are in the job field. I'm one of those people. So I've been in business a long time. Been in a security business officially since 2001. And since you guys will appreciate this, I got the CISSP back when it was 2,000 pages. Not like it is nowadays, reading by a American photo. I got it the hard way. But I actually walked out of that and I said, I can't do anything except write a disaster recovery plan. I actually felt I could do that. So we started a disaster recovery plan practice at Compass. Then I went to Old Dominion where I got my combat training. The largest botnet herd was 24% of the campus. That was all out of fun. So what I'm doing today, and what I'm here to talk with you guys about, is adversary simulation. What does it involve to do adversary simulation? This is actually what we do at the range, cyber range of Fusion University. And kind of what a lot of the universities are doing today with cyber ranges. It's like the thing, right? They don't have some kind of a range in the business. You're kind of missing out. And by range, we need more than just a lab. So kind of, if you look at this, some of these who am I things, I'm the author of the Blue Team Handbook, GSE, and I have a quote for you guys. And I got this from Keith Palmgren, and he's a sales instructor, a friend of mine. And he has an interesting quote. He says, there's 3 people on the internet, sheep, wolves, and shepherds. I think that's a really great quote. I really like it. So the cyber range is really all about raising up the next generation of digital shepherds. We have kids that come through, we are industry facing, we've had folks come in from 4 different continents and 13 different time zones in these cyber range. We've had military folks from DoD, Army, Air Force, no Marines yet, but we've had Army, Air Force, and Navy. We've done a lot of roadshows and things like that. So what I'm going to do is kind of couch this in a little bit of what we do and a lot about access. And the Gartner Trough and how to leverage that. It's available for open source tools and all that good stuff. So I think I've got a lot of material and I don't have a watch. So
I'll keep you on.
Okay, good, because I've got till 10, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So our range, when you're thinking about adversary simulations, there's a bunch of different things to think about. In our range, we have 4 classroom groups with 5 student workstations and 1 trainer workstation. In those classroom groups, we run a scenario, we simulate a piece of activity, and we coach the attendee through the process. This is what the attack was. This is how you go analyze. This is what you need to care about from an incident response perspective. This is how you can change the environment. And we actually let people change the environment, which has some really interesting results. Like we have a scenario where you have this user account and it's doing all kinds of digital shenanigans and it's a service account. And I've had a couple of guys just delete the service account. And then I said, so what do you think of the impact of that decision? Well, we got rid of the attacker. But did you happen to find out where the service account is? No, we just knew that it was doing something useless. And you just took the core production database servers where you're simulating 1,000 person company out of business. Was that a good idea? So we have a lot of people who have a lot of aha learning moments in the environment. It's really kind of fun. So we practice incident response. We have a lot of instrumentation. We do orientation. We kind of talk through it on framework, and then we do after action report. And I'm actually going to show you some of that stuff later on. So when we think about adversary simulation, I have some level setting on some of the lingo here. The first thing you want to get is what's a red team, what's a blue team, what's a purple team, what's a white team, what's a green team. And apparently purple teams are important because I put them on there twice. So if you look at the red team, right, that is a traditional penetration testing, attack from the outside, see how far you can get. What Mike and I have done for a number of times. If you think about the blue team or the DART, detection and response team, or the CSERT, in case you're not aware, the term CERT, C-E-R-T, Computer Emergency Response Team, it's in fact copyrighted by Carnegie Mellon, which is why you never see it in the industry. Anybody's paying attention, I realize we can't call ourselves a CERT because that's a Carnegie Mellon. But I happen to really like DART, detection and response. These are the folks who are you, the internal attacker, the defender who's actually trying to defend the network against their current state. So your red team actually assesses your actual security state, and your blue team attempts to defend your actual security state. Focus on log analysis, network analysis, all those sorts of things. So what you're seeing in this industry is a general change to purple team. And fresh off the press today, I just got my SANS Sec 599 kit, and I went and pulled out specifically for you, how does SANS define it? Page 7 of the course defines purple team as an activity where a security expert emulate how an adversary operates by using adversary tool techniques and procedure routines. It's actually a great definition. And that's kind of what the bulk of this stuff is going to be about. How do you get to that state? When you read about this, you'll hear that Gartner has actually opened up a new area. You can share. Gartner's opened up a new area of research. Anton Shavoykin on the board wanted to talk about this, and he actually had a term that he created. And for us, that is actually a very good thing. This is the Gartner hype cycle, and you are here. We are at the very, very beginning of the hype cycle. And I love the fact that this is the trough of disillusionment. Is there anybody that'd be willing to say they had a disillusioning experience with an IT security product? Anybody in the room? Seeing if you got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, stop with the hand. I'm feeling it. So you've got that, breach and attack simulation. That's actually a benefit to us because that means when you're Googling for that, you can actually take advantage of that term. If you're interested in what tools are available, I have slide shots from several. Who's available in this space and who's actually capable of doing breach and attack simulation? That's a great term to use. So, Gartner's actually helping us. They have this formal definition tools that allow the enterprise to continuously and consistently behave like an attacker to test your in-place security posture. Most of these tools run a particular environment, do a particular test, and then you get to find out how well your stuff works. They're not human driven, they're automated. So vendors will use that in their architecture. You have my permission to use it. I've been using it for about 17 years. I haven't had enough guts to trademark it yet, but someday I will. And it's really, you're now at the point where there's about 7 or 8 vendors in the space that are commercially viable that don't look like they're going to fail in 2 months. And interestingly, several of them actually come out of Israel. Interestingly enough. I have no idea what that really means, except apparently they're really sharp folks. They know anything about Mossad and how they operate. They're in the digital space pretty well. You have to answer critical questions if you're gonna get into this space. And obviously, you know what show I was watching. First thing, why are you even considering doing some kind of adversary simulation project? When you already have 50-hour work week. Anybody have a 40-hour work week in the room? Because if not, the rest of us want to talk. You already got a 50-hour work week. Why do you want to do something else that may break them? So why do you want to do this? If you can't answer that why, you might have to spend your time now. And I cannot tell you how important this second point is. Why do you need to artificially test your internal staff? Why do you need to test the systems? Why do you need to test a third party? Like anybody have an outsourced security operations group in the room? Why do you need to test it? Is there something wrong? Are you solving a problem? Do you have to meet some requirement? Has someone asked you? So you want to really articulate these questions. And when it comes to internal staff, I want to talk with you a little bit about toxic methods. Have any of you ever read or seen a MITRE document that's around 300 pages on how to build a world-class security operations center? It is a reference document in the SecOps space. Anybody ever seen that? Carlos Zimmerman, who was the author of that document, did the keynote for the SANSOC Summit last year in Louisiana. And Carlos talked about toxic methods. And what he talked about is that there is a tendency and a temptation to measure people's performance in a manner that pits people against each other and pits them against the system and actually ends up destroying them in the long run. Like, how many times did you close a ticket today? How many alarms did you close? Which really means people are going to behave poorly because of how you're measuring them. So if you're thinking about doing this adversary simulation, blue team versus red team, try to be purple and try to be in vogue and all modern and all that, really think about how you're actually going to build people up and build up your systems, because then you're actually helping your enterprise. Carlos made all these points at the SOC Summit, so I wanted to bring them forward to you. If you're interested in his presentation, you can find it at SANS.org Summit Archives, the SOC Summit last year. It's got some really great content. So think about your internal security. Why would you do this versus doing the next best thing? Why would you do this versus paying for that Palo Alto license that you got lapsed? That's actually going to be protected in 724, right? How are people going to respond? Do you tell them? Do you tell them you're going to test them? Yes or no? What are they going to say if you got a junior? How many of you ever worked with like a junior 20-year-old who thinks they're super sharp, and then you test them, and then those of us who've been around for a while, you realize they're doing the same thing we did when we were 20 years old. They're thinking they're great, and then they find out, because those of us who've been around for a while, we know a lot more stuff because we've got more time in the game. How is that younger kid going to respond? How is that junior person going to respond? How are you going to build them up and not care, or her down? Actually, that's interesting. As I've been working on this talk and I've gotten some feedback, and I was talking with a buddy of mine today. John Hubbard, same instructor friend of mine. He told me that he worked for Glasgow Smith Kline. He said that one of the best SOC analysts they had ever hired was a librarian. That's unbelievable talk, completely neuro brain. AdSyn depends on asset compromise. A lot of these tools, a lot of these techniques assume asset compromise. I don't go for that. If you can't honestly explain how an attacker really got in the network with a plausible mechanism and some kind of on-system trace, you are setting the deck in your favor. So if you're thinking about doing this, make sure that you understand by what mechanism did the evil actually come on board the network, and is that reliable, plausible, and is it likely to occur? Because if you know the answer to that question, then you can actually test whatever that technical control is. It should have worked better. So don't just assume someone gains domain admin day one. Make them work. And in your ad system, you have to have that. Now, my teenager tells me that I'm not culturally relevant if I don't have a meme. So this is one of my two memes. All the things. You need a plan. You have to have a purpose, an outline. If you're gonna test whatever you're gonna test, whatever you're gonna simulate, We're going to simulate a user dropping USB drives with evil software on the network. So I decided to go buy 5 rubber duckies and learn about what rubber duckies are. Rubber duckies, cool stuff, right? There, if you guys, anybody besides me know what a rubber ducky is, $50 USB player, hit this thing, right? You got to write a document to explain it. I'm an author, code writing, but it is important for you to write things down. Words have meaning. You actually take the time to write something down and write an objective. Because if you write an objective and you clearly state this is the objective, what we want to test, then you can actually determine and measure if you met that objective. There's a difference between goals and objectives. My goal here tonight, coming to talk with you, is to tell you about adversary system or adversary simulation. I have several objectives. One of my objectives is make sure that you have an inventory of open source tools, make sure that you have some idea what commercial tools are, make sure that you know what rangeisms are, and make sure that you know that you need to plan. Goals get you there, objectives are the measurement one. Your training program, if you're going to do this, train people. Train people to make them better, sharper, gooder. That's a technical term, make them more gooder. What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the KSAs that you're actually going to measure? If you want to deploy the slickest, coolest PowerShell remote exploit proper thingamadoodle that you got off GitHub last week, do your folks even understand how to turn on Sysmon or read the 4688 Windows Autumn event to even read the event to know what it means and understand that when they see a PowerShell thing that's got gobbledygook that's this line, that means something. Do they even understand? Do they have the knowledge to do that? Do they have the knowledge of long tail analysis to pull events from the last 24 hours from a compromised machine or a suspect compromised machine in order to actually look and see what events occurred in what order so they have an idea what to zero in on? What's the difference in 80% of the 4768s and the 4771s that are listed on the domain controller, and why do you care about the 1.5% of the 4624's type 3s? How many of you understood what I just said? Right, did you say, are you saying yes? That's cool, you did. I just recounted to you all of the event numbers for authentication to a domain controller. So if you're going to do this, understand there's going to be knowledge, skill, and ability, and you have to make sure that you know what people need in order to be successful. If you find that they don't have knowledge, skill, and abilities, they're in a security role, you've identified a training group and a training platform for them and a way to enrich them. Purple teaming is really about enriching both sides of the game. The really red team, sharp guys, that really, or gals actually, should not be so monolithic. One of the best pen testers I've ever made is his name, Tom Thomas. Find out what are your time commitments? These things do not grow on trees. I'm telling you, it is not just as simple as downloading meeting cats and then it works. It's not a 5-minute. It takes time to determine how you're going to do something, where you can do it, how to make it safe. I actually have noted here that I tell you, if you're going to do this adversary simulation thing, red versus blue work, get a charge code. Get a charge code. I have found, I used to work for America, a big Fortune 500 company, we didn't have timesheets, but I actually kept track of stuff. I kept track of how long it kept to do things because I wanted to be able to say at the end of the year, I spent 204 hours on that project. You're only giving me 5% of the credit on my major job objectives or MJOs. Well, that means something. How did we spend that year? Because we actually did 200 hours of value back to the organization. So, you know, don't think this is kind of really cool because I can go get a book on it and it takes time. It does take time. So, yet again, we're on the, I have to have a plan. Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain. It is not the kill chain, it is the cyber kill chain. It's important. It's a really good structure to give you a good idea of a plan, but realize, and now that people have been using the CKC for a while, and it's getting baked into folks' products, and people are actually trying to use it, SANS has really adopted it in their programs, and other colleges are actually teaching it now. It has some limitations and it makes some assumptions. The cyber kill chain was originally designed as a cataloging tool. It was not designed as this end-all, be-all, how do I create my AdSend project, or how do I implement my whatever. It's designed as a cataloging tool. That's actually the 3 PhDs who came up with this, and we have to have a way of describing what people were doing. It has some limitations. It assumes that your adversary actually gets some kind of payload in your environment. If there isn't really a way for an adversary to get a payload in, I have seen some environments where that's actually difficult. It is a little bit difficult to do this. The second thing it assumes is that the attacker gains, and this is like this totally in vogue, a close-in foothold. That's like a cool term of what? What that means, and actually I've had people in the military, because obviously we talk about military folks, talk about close-in access. That means they gained elevated access through compromising a user account, and now they're executing all kinds of digital shenanigans on the network. Okay, so it kind of assumes that you get there. You don't necessarily have to get domain admin rights, or server member admin rights, or enterprise admin rights, or schema admin rights, or backup operator rights, or restore operator rights to steal the data from the database. You don't need that. You need DDA rights. That's what you need. So you don't need to manage the domain to do this. And what you're finding today is more and more attackers and sophisticated people have realized that, and they're actually just compromising the user and trying to find a user that is most likely to have access to the data and compromise that user, which could be NVIDIA Finance. Modern adversaries, TCPs depend on, if you look at the act on objective space, there's lots of stuff that is missing from the kill chain, like lateral movement. If you fully expanded act on objectives, and you blew it up, you have a big, huge hot mess on the left-hand side. So this is one of the models. As a result, and as an advancement, these folks here, Foxit, this is from the Wikipedia article, have developed something called the unified kill chain. And what they said is there's more and more things going on, there's cyclical processes, you go through stuff, you have to rinse, wash, repeat, go back to the beginning before you can advance. So you'll find this model coming, it's got 18 different attack phases, talks about the different activities that occur at a different phase. So with this model as one mechanism to help you build a plan, and this model as another mechanism to help you build a plan, you have a couple of models to start with. In the traditional model, we have a red team lead. This is kind of work that I've done with the scant few red team things happen. You walk in, attack the environment, you perform all kinds of digital shenanigans, make good notes, keep track of things. If all goes well, you time and date everything, you fully attack the network, and you gain some kind of elevated access. You then walk in and you give a report. And it's 80-hour gig, you spent 75 of them. You're doing the last 5 hours for your report, for your turnover, so you can sign off on your SOW and get paid. In that 80 hours, the amount of time that the defender gets is the last 5 hours of your time. Can you effectively help them improve their organizational security posture in 5 hours? Maybe, maybe not. It really depends on how well you documented what you wrote, what you found, those kinds of things. But the point is that the traditional model, where a red team does whatever they do, generates a report, has a meeting, can be very adversarial. That's not the model of today. The purple model is red looks at what they're doing. They understand they want to try to emulate an attacker. They share those TCPs with blue. They say, look, guys, this is what we're going to do. We're starting tomorrow. You have overnight, you have how long it's going to take. They let them know what's going on. And they both are actually working to improve on it. If red is successful and gains whatever the objective they wanted to act on, they gain that other access, they gain that access, red was successful, and blue had an idea of what they were doing, so blue could go back and see what happened. Red can also validate vulnerability issues. If your red team is capable of walking into your network and gaining elevated access by doing a remote code execution and not rolling over your Windows farm, because you haven't patched in the last 3 years on those Windows 2003 servers, yes, they're still in the environment. Well, you've validated that, you paid a bill for it, and you can show senior management, look, it's not that hard. And the next question is, exactly how hard is it for anybody to walk in the building and plug into a network? Mike and I actually did something for a client a while back, and We walked around 5 different buildings and we gained access to the network at like 17 locations for a fair amount of time before someone came over and knocked on it. 17. I'll tell you. Red team vulnerabilities issues, I'm talking about that. Blues understand what the TTPs are and understand technology changes. Blue is getting, in fact, a lot better. More and more organizations deploying Sysmon, more and more organizations using Windows Event Collection and forwarding. Today, there are dirt cheap, as in nearly free, as in free beer or sweat equity, great visualization tools, Security Onion, Sofhelp, Help, all kinds of other tools. Wazoo, which is the guy, it's not Wazoo, it's Wazoo, I heard that pronouncement. The guy who took over the OSEC project, deploy OSEC, there's now a beautiful common user interface for all that Windows data. Costs you nothing aside from the cost of the search. It's what it would be to live together. But really, the point here is that the both teams work together to close the gap against the technical technology. You got to think about what you need. What do you own? What are you going to test? Are you going to test from the outside? Where's the exactly what's going on? I used to have this actual complex, 95 item picture of our range environment, but all it was a bunch of blue splotches. So I didn't figure that out effectively. What I really want to tell you is, do you know where your business critical data is? It's on Oracle and SQL, MySQL, and Postgres. If those are the technologies that we're using and we're going to do an adversary simulation project, let's make sure that we try those environments and try to pull the configuration from production on our test bed so we can at least be as close as a production was. What are my user populations and how susceptible are they? Who are my users that are likely to have elevated access to all sorts of things? What is my traditional perimeter? How much stuff do I have in the cloud? How much stuff do you have going from the internal to the cloud? How much stuff do you actually use to drop off on an S3 bucket? Do you have any idea? You know. How many people are you actually using Dropbox for real? What does your actual external firewall policy look like? Before I left the consulting firm that I worked for, we responded to 18 incidents over a 2-year period. 8 of those clients exposure web test offload all the internet. They didn't. 5 of them did it creatively, but they still didn't. Think about what's in your cloud. How do you actually control that? What is available as a technology in the cloud? You can't just turn on a snort or a full packet capture sensor in AWS. You have to have some alternative. So if you're depending on deploying Seek or something like that for packet flows, you can't do that in AWS. You have to have an alternative. You need to understand how to actually generate packet flows, and you know the packet flow data and the net flow equivalent data that you get out of the VPC probably is not parsable in your current application that you've been using in your data center or your campus network. You know and love for the past 10 years for 2 different products. That's all. I mean, these are all things you're thinking about. What are you actually going to test? If you decide to go the artificial domain build route, you decide to stand up a lab, there's a number of tools out there. Auto Lab, Automated Lab, Box Starter, and Detection Lab. Detection Lab is the one that I'm kind of fond of. DL, simple build script in PowerShell and regular traditional Bourne shell. Download it, fire it up, pulls down the Microsoft ISOs, creates an environment for you with Splunk, Miner Caldera, Windows Active Directory, and has already put up for you a boatload of Windows Event Forwarding with subscriptions and rules. How many of you have not ever set up Windows Event Collection or Windows Event Forwarding? You've never done it? Anybody else? Anybody else want to admit you don't have to set up? All right, that's the 2 hands. If you've never done right and left, this environment in and of its own right is enough to fire it up, stand it up, see it work. It will make you a believer. You'll have a CTJ, and you will figure out how to deploy this tool. It's an amazing technology, and DL actually sets it up. I like it so much, I put together a GoFundMe for the guy. He's basically makes about $70,000 a year, and he's a heck of a guy. He's building a phenomenal tool for free. Chris Long was on Recent Security Weekly with Paul Essenorian. Passed about a month ago, 2 months ago. You can go see him talk about it. It's pretty interesting stuff. This list grew. It used to be more legible, but it had to get smaller. So I kept having to add stuff to it. And this was all the stuff that I've actually even touched at some point in my life. It's like, I've actually used Dumpster Fire program. I'll talk about that. APT simulator, batch process line, screenshots pretty cool. Another batch simulator, network, and there's even stuff later on. I haven't gotten on this list, but there are tons and tons and tons of simulation tools that you can use that do a particular thing for you to cause adversary simulation behavior that can also be used to test your security posture. There are all kinds of blue team tools that are available. You'll notice the list is shorter. Because this is tool and this is Drudge. Right? This is what management affectionately calls a collateral lead. Silk, Scotty, the Siler, and Black Hills Information Security has a tool called Rita. Rita is an amazing tool. Rita is statistically validated, created by a couple of guys who have PhDs and understand what K means and K clustering means. How many of you have had an advanced statistics class? I mean statistics class. One person, and then two people. K means and K clustering talks about the time of a multiple group of events clustered around each other, spread out over a pattern. That's actually where Rita detects. You can build a botnet command and control detection agent for the want of downloading security onion, throwing a switch to make the Zeek system log in tabs format versus JSON format, then following the already documented process to get Rita on board. The next day, you're going to find out if you have command and control in your environment. It's that good of a tool. It's a phenomenal tool. QRadar. You can get a 50 EPS version of QRadar. It went forever. If you haven't worked with universities, Splunk for education, amazingly very cheap. And of course, there's, in the ELK world, there's ELK, Soft ELK, SecOnion, and I don't even know what other, and there's one by Wazoo, those sorts of things. Windows Forensics Toolchest, WFT by Mining McDougall. LogMD is a really great tool for analyzing before and after state of the system. Very well known, we actually use it in the range. The stuff that has the stars is the stuff that we either have or using in the range environment where I work, or will be adopted by the end of the summer. If you want to go cloud, Eric Capuano, say that 3 times fast. And don't say it in front of them because they'll correct you, because I can't fast. But that's really close. He created a package set called OpenSOC.io. Eric is the primary cyber defender for the state of Texas. Eric figured out I have to have a way of teaching my staff, working for government agencies. Government doesn't pay as well as commercial sector. So he's like, I have to have a way of teaching them how to do things in the entire state. So Eric got management support and funding, put a team of 5 people together, put together a package called OpenSOC.io. He lists all 12 packages on the site. You can actually go take a class from him. He does it like once a year at Black Hat, see everything works. It's pretty inexpensive. But one is you can go to the OpenSOC.io and see what are the tools and technologies from an open source perspective that will really, really help this stuff work out. It's really great environment. Of course, security onion. Pentest IT maintains a list of most of these tools and whether or not they have a particular feature. So we talked earlier about the MITRE ATT&CK framework. We talked about kill chain rules. These are the various tactics. This has not changed in 2 years, surprisingly. But if you need a tool, and if you want to know what tool might be a good tool, you can check this guy out at Pentest IT. He maintains this inventory. He has individual specific reviews on all the various products. But the point is that not every tool does everything. Matter of fact, it looks like the only thing that you can do that covers the entire spectrum is these guys right here.
Atomic Team.
Yeah, the ARC does it pretty well by Red Canary, Atomic Red Team. And if you want to do like credential access and discovery, it looks like everybody has that covered, but privilege escalation, APT Simulator doesn't, but APT Simulator has some other benefits. With that in mind, how about that for a second, right? AppSim, APT Sim, it's a batch file. Chocolate dots. That was a joke. I got a better joke, but say that. This is now aligned to the attack framework, and it's pretty sweet what it is. It's got a ton of batch files in it. You can modify and play with them, tinker with them, run an individual batch file for an individual technique or run the whole suite. It causes all kinds of behavior. Has local file collision, so it can generate MD5 hashes that look like ISCs. Does a couple of different types of command and control, even command and control with WMI. Extremely hard to audit. Malware remote access Trojan will run Mimikatz on the box and go get it from GitHub, so you can actually have a trace to see if you detected such an animal coming down. If you've got your Palo Alto, you can pull it down on GitHub, and if your actual your SSL reception is working, did your Palo Alto actually detect it like it's supposed to? So you detect your system there. We're able to test that and all kinds of different things that it does. The really hip thing, I don't know what that is. The really hip thing about APT SIEM is I start up on a virtual machine, I run the tool I want, I give it to my junior person with a recipe, and I say, go get them, see what you can find, I destroy the VM, and I shut it down. It's that simple. It's actually used in the SANS 599 protein course. Network flight sim, NFS. Not to be confused with the file sharing. Lightweight malware traffic generator, designed to cause packet capture activity to flow across the LAN, a little bit better than things like TCP replay or very close to PT3's PCAP teller. I'll tell you about PT3 in a few minutes. I've got some screenshots for it. But the really neat thing about this is it does what attackers do. You can do DNS tunneling, the C2 over DNS, the C2 over IPC as a spam bot, all kinds of other stuff. You can add your own PCAPs to it. So it's another really great tool that generates real traffic on the wire. So if you have a technical control or monitoring capability, you can determine if that monitoring capability actually detects. You can determine, you guys that use an info blocks, so an info block actually block this traffic, and it uses a particular name, so it's easy to find if you know the name. Art, yes, it's okay to call art. Factile seven. Simple atomic tests. These are individual tests that map up to the kill chain. This could be the MITRE ATT&CK right now. It's all mapped. Very easy to use. I have a screenshot to show to you in 1 second. If you can type, you can use the ARG. It really is driven on the idea that we want to take a given tactic, and the attack framework has all tactics identified by a letter and a 4-digit number. So if you want to look at privilege escalation, and if you want to look at maybe some odd different ways of doing priv-esc, you have to say priv-esc. If you want to do that, you can go pull down several different ART tests. And it's as simple as importing a module. Once you've downloaded it, you have to have it on the machine in the right spot. Assigning a variable to it, I just happen to use the variable for the item. Get the technique, reads in this data file, and performs this action. So in this particular action, we have a local comm triplet execution. Runs Rich32. This right here is the exact command line that's going to execute. So if you have an EDR platform like Carbon Black or Tanium, you can be instrumented for that. If you're pulling in data from your sysmon events, you can be instrumented. If you look at things like this, you can train people to say, what does this tool use? Is it common to see this appear as a 4688 event on Windows, run as a human being user? Usually it's not run by history, run by someone. But that is but one example. And again, the price is right and the source is yours. You can modify the source. You can modify, I don't think I should repeat that. You can modify this to your heart's content. This, of course, was me actually opening the cap. I did this on the phone with the guy from Red Canary. I was like, I want to put your thing in my talk. He's like, well, do this. And I said, oh, that's a great screenshot. So here's actual real stuff. Now, I wouldn't be a good speaker if I didn't give you some of the bad sides of doing this range stuff and AdSense. It's not perfect. You have to be aware of these things. Anything that you're doing that's an artificial item, a simulator, running a PCAP file, anything like that, they don't pivot. They don't adjust to your defenses. They tend to go after one thing, elevated access. That's what they tend to do. They also don't read your email. Attackers read your email. Attackers like to know if the security team has found it. The end of that, attackers registry. It's like network activity without the system trace. Anything that talks on the LAN and behaves like an attacker, but doesn't do anything to generate what I like to call an on-system trace, like an executable in the file system or something in the registry, anything like that, it's only half the game, and it really violates that principle of how do they actually gain access to the compute resource so they can cause the network activity. It doesn't negate the fact that you can get value out of understanding all of your network monitoring functions for all the data pulled off the LAN. What it says is that you're only going halfway. You can't generate some kind of on-system trace. A lot of tools depend on some kind of an agent. And in many of the commercial tools, you can't actually rename the agent. Like for AttackIQ, you cannot rename the agent. It will not run. That's a design consideration on their part. The other thing about some of these things is many range environments, ours set auditing either high or low. We follow the Microsoft middle or road standard because we assume that you're going to follow some good practices, good structures, and you're actually going to do a good job trying to automate everything, but you're not going to go crazy. So you have to be careful about how much actual logging you turn on. You can't make that artificially high or low. Your best bet, if you're going to do this to try to mimic your production, is to export your policy objects from the Windows environment and actually import them in whatever your test simulation get is. So where do I get my next tool? I mean, they've got a distribution center up there, right? You guys have same-day Amazon in Richmond. It just came to Virginia Beach, so excited. I got socks yesterday. I ordered them at 9 o'clock in the morning. That was funny. I grabbed the. Could you do something new with him? Could you go back to my red backpack and grab the red there's a drink inside. The commercial product space backside is small today, but let me tell you, it's heating up. These folks have been in business a couple of years. I have some screenshots to brag with them. AttackIQ, Safe Breach, Immunity, Simulate. These guys are really big up on it. Thank you so much. SpecterOps does some really good training in the space. They've got a tremendous reputation. They've got some tools. And they also come out with UAdSyn where they'll help you duplicate your network P2V and actually do some stuff there. Randori is coming online. And there's also some really nice red team automation tools that can do adversary simulation. Windows Sight and Cobalt Strike are two examples. So in the plan slide, I forgot to mention, but I'll tell you now because it's kind of my mind. There is a complete MITRE APT3 plan document that was published about a year ago. And in the MITRE document, they explain to you how the APT3 attack group, which is a known named attack group, been around for about 6-7 years, what they have been observed doing in order, and how they use whatever command they use. In the APT3 spreadsheet that MITRE has put together, if you don't know who MITRE is, they're basically a government think tank who advises Congress. They're not for profit. They're essentially funded by us, the taxpayer. There are two very important columns. One column is how to execute that individual item in Cobalt Strike. $3,500, inexpensive tool, very well known by Raphael Mudge. No, I don't get it. And then how to actually exercise that item in Metasploit. So those are two tools that you can use. In our environment, 48 operating systems by 4 classrooms by 5 seats, and we're 112 miles away. I looked to come down to visit us. Breaking Point by Ixia has over 500 malware samples and 16 or 1700 protocols, or 2,300 applications that will simulate. So there's commercial tools out there that can do this for you, and there's others. If you look at the space, and I talked to a lot of vendors last fall, they tend to work kind of a couple of different models. Either operate in isolation, they want you to make a work-alike platform or a P2D platform and test there. That's one method some vendors use. A lot of the vendors actually deploy out an artificial agent, similar to what a network Trojan would have on your machine. Several of the vendors are IP node locked, like AttackIQ is IP node locked. pay X dollars for an IP address, and that's where the thing is deployed. They will stay local on that network. You have to map out the pathways in order to guide the tool to make it do its job. Several of the vendors will not tolerate renaming the agent. So if you're trying to use this to train people, once they find the agent name on the system, it's game over. They know what's happening, and then you kind of have pass the card. Malicious traffic generation, network traffic, some of them do that. You have to figure out where they go across, and some of them deploy what they call black box multi-vendor, just deploy the agent, turn it on, and don't do any instrumentation. So that. Different ways that we use. Attack IQ is designed to test an individual tool team and process. We have a very active community who's built modules to add in to exercise a particular function. It's kind of like, it's not quite the same thing as completely automated medical exploit tool, but it's close to that. Different things that you do. There's an active user community that supports the tool. And this is one of the ones where you cannot, in fact, deploy the agent and change the name. You have to go instrument the agent to do whatever it's going to do. You have to build all the steps in the tool so you have a lift to make it work. However, it is rather expensive. So if you're looking to do adversary simulation and test your environment, and you're going to put some equity in, if you want to test all the controls once a week and just make it work and see how things work, Attack IQ can do anything. Simulate. Another example, trying to follow what malicious criminals, and they have a particular emphasis on cyber criminals. A lot of knowledge about how the digital mafia, not the Dixie mafia, that's the digital organization. I have to watch one of the testify. How they work. They test all phases of the attack. You pretty much pick the individual component you want to test. You can't test everything, you have to get one component, target it, pull the item down, run it in your environment, under your control, and executable under your name. You have to drop it off. So it's not a lot of things. Scythe is a tool that we use. Kind of found. It's extremely modular, has a bunch of communications. It can actually use Twitter for command and control, which has been done. There's a fairly famous example of a botnet that used Britney Spears' Twitter feed. They would follow a particular picture and post comments, use hidden text with Unicode, really good stuff. Runs as an EXE or DLL, will either run over HTTP, HTTPS, various protocols you can use. You can deploy in a variety of ways. So long as you can get the executable there, it will give you a pretty good idea of what's going on. The other really nice thing about Scythe is it has a really nice user interface to see what agents are actually talking, squawking on the network. They can do command and control over DNS, Google Docs. How about, this is so cool. How about using a spreadsheet for botnet command and control? Something cooler one. IP addresses, names and dates, commands and cells in a spreadsheet. They actually have implemented that with a tool. You can actually do SMB traffic with it. There's tons of capabilities and modules. If I gave you the actual screenshot, you couldn't read it. You see a bunch of gray blobs. So I pulled a couple just so you get some idea. There's tons of modules in it. We actually are going to be deploying the APT break campaign in our environment using this tool. The various steps that occur with the timing component, this is an individual step. If you want to exercise just privilege escalation on your environment, you can pull that through. And then say you want to run that same step every 5 minutes perpetually, you can just run that if you want to deploy that agent. So it is almost point and click red teaming to a degree, because a lot of the low-hanging fruit items that you would do in an environment and you do the site will just pull out of it. It also now has integration with the atomic red team. So getting back to this kind of fast phrase we talked about, earlier with Gartner breach attack simulation, what do you expect to get on this kind of thing? If you're going to use one of the automated tools and not do the human approach with web versus blue, you're going to want to find the answer of how well my tools work. Does my Palo Alto actually detect it? Palo Alto has a really interesting feature. I've only seen it trigger on 2 events on 2 occasions for 2 customers, where every night, overnight, it will analyze the prior day's data, and if it finds something nefarious, it's a great word. Use that in conversation. What you do at your talk, I learned about nefarious behavior. If it finds something nefarious, it will generate a specific alert for you. Well, how do you test that? That is wicked high to test. For those of you from Boston, wicked high. You just can't test that. But it's all you can see, does my PA actually work down? Can you validate your security spec? If you use one of these tools and you're using the spam bot function that Simulate has, and you're saying we want to test our spam bot function, we want to test our proof point, Simulate has this really awesome feature. You give it a mailbox, it sends a dearth or a cornucopia of different types of spam and malicious attachments to and from your mailbox that flow right through all of your known email filters to determine how many of them were actually blocked. If you're using XYZ anti-spam agent and you sent 10,000 samples that have been generated based on 10,000 wild examples in the wild collected over the last 5 years, and your anti-spam system only blocks 56% of those particular attachments or suspicious mail, what percentage of a room for improvement do you have? I heard huge. I was thinking you'd go with Clint Eastwood for 44. I heard that. How well are people instrumental? Do they actually know how to use the tools? How many of you actually have one anti-spam guy or girl in the company? If you want to test this and that person's on vacation for a week, what happens? It's not good. How important is good one? That's the one I was mentioning right now. Simulate is actually one of the ones that has really good email testing. And they're Israel about it. How important is your perimeter? Did your internal segmentation project work? Did your agent was capable of actually remotely logging into everything on the network? But it can only go so far. How well is your VLANs working? If your network engineering team is supposed to actually deploy private VLANs on all your workstation networks, because that's the policies, do you actually know that they've actually deployed private VLANs on all of your individual Cisco switches in your environment, on every single switch that you have? So that's very fast. So these things are really good at testing your posture. But they don't behave like people. And Mike and I, we are creative. We will respond. Agent stuff. So obviously, you don't want to go buy a bunch of stuff. And I'll tell you, you really don't need to buy a bunch of stuff. What you need to do is try some inexpensive stuff first. See how these things work, and how to actually see what your environment's going to do, what you actually want to actually test, and do your function testing. DT3, a great tool. This is by a guy from what country has Chrome? Norway? Is Chrome in Norway?
The other countries have Danish, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, all have programs.
Norway, that's right. He's from Norway. Right. He's been around for a long time. Drop off a Kali box, which could be in your Kali little Raspberry Pi, 50 bucks. You drop that off, you install the agent, you register, get an API key. He will give you 4 free network trace items. I'll actually show you what's in there. And then you can get a couple of IOC collision items. And then you buy credits. And it ends up costing you about $3 a component using this tool. But you can download it, try a couple of different things, and see all the things that it works for free. It actually has a tool and has a functionality built in where you can produce binaries that have an MD5 hash collision with known IOCs. So if you have carbon black in your environment, or Tanium, or some other tool that can collect hashes, you can actually check and see is that a known hash for a known piece of malware. You can drop a benign EXE and see if that tool works. That's pretty cool. That's like weaponizing the failures of MD5 hash. Pretty neat stuff. It's also written in Python. If it's written in Python, you can then take PyInstaller and create a Windows executable. Because what I did for this presentation is I just kind of put this together from a couple of Linux files. And by the way, it took me 4.5 hours shooting at beginning to end, to learn about it, read it, download 42-page document, install the two machines, and generate the slides. 4.5 hours. That's how long it took me to do it. I'll show you that. So you've got 4 samples. You've got the crypto wall, Emotet, HADEX, and a static elements. Bring it up. Panel looks like Metasploit, or Metasploit. Assign the host profile, run the agent, fire it up, let it go. And then you have to turn on the client. You turn on the client actually logs. The server side gives you this Python file. So you drop the Python file off on your machine. You're running something with source code, it's human readable. You can drop this off anywhere you want. You can get it to some victim machine. You can put it on the Raspberry Pi, put it on the network segment, get a DHCP address, see if things detected. You run the client side. For the default rule set that ships with Security Onion, the default rule set that ships that you don't pay for, that's just on the box, on the ISO that you download on SOS, will pick these things up for you. So if you deploy an item on the network on a segment, and you're testing your IDS, and you want to see if you can actually detect these things in the segment, all you need is an ability to do mirroring, spanning, or some other way to deliver packet capture data to your security onion sensor. You can actually see these things. So you can use this as a simple tool to determine, oh, and that's 4.5 hours, including making security onion box, so I can actually have this picture. Here's HADEX, that different rules that actually detect it on, put a couple of boxes in place, and you can actually repeat that data here that went across, so you can pick it up. So if you actually want to do something and train people how to read intrusion detection alerts and kind of trace through these things and read packets, the price is really high. On the second distribution, it's a right-click operation from the snort, the squeal interface. You know what squeal stands for? Snort GUI for labels. That's actually what it stands for. Right-click on it, you get the address. This is a typo. And then you can see what individual items appeared. This is nicely human readable. You've got some long tail analysis going on. I will count by name, who talked to whom, what's your IP address relationship with a wonderful right click, and what actually type of data was observed. So Security Onion brings this to the table. We're leveraging the Zeek or Bro, if they're old school, all the data that it has. You have a nice user interface to your intrusion detection functionality and 2 files. That's pretty sweet. If you're like me and you're making a mistake and you leave it running for a day, how much traffic does that little malignant thing generate? 32,000 events. Scared the heck out of me. I'm kicking a lot of this. I'm like, oh! Then I realized, oh, that's pretty fun. A little bit of light. And then what's really interesting is, why could I have about a 50 item dip at this point in time? That's inconsistency. That's interesting. I wonder why. I wonder what the problem is. This is the end of the data coming up. It always looks like that. Wow. So if you let it run for a day, so you don't really have to spend a lot, is what I'm telling you. You can just modify your infrastructure a little bit, a couple of Raspberry Pis, a couple of old PCs, and Kali runs on. Gosh, getting 2 years. So you can run all this stuff. I got a couple of laptops in my garage, like a church baby and a white box order. That's a joke. The one thing that's really going to drive you nuts is, do you want email capability? That's the thing that's going to drive you nuts. That's not an easy task to just go set up. It takes a little bit of work to do that. Install a VM on a machine, build an image, put your security onion box up there, limit your connectivity, build your scripts, do whatever you're going to do, and then you can touch your infrastructure just on some isolated segment. Every single thing in your infrastructure is defensive. But you really have to know how your infrastructure is going to respond. So here's the question. Why? This says Tinder. According to my teenager, this is a dating-related app site. I have never used it. I'm just going on what my 17-year-old told me. But I have heard of eHarmony. I've never used eHarmony. My wife is a sweetie. But eHarmony, they're both dating sites. Why? Well, do they resolve correctly to the actual addresses? Why does my infrastructure respond differently for one and the other? Because this is actually an extremely valid test. If you work for an organization that does not permit online dating, for people to go to or gambling sites or whatever, why does my super fancy schmancy, that's a technical term, Palo Alto behave differently, detect things differently, and give you different response ranges? But OpenDNS was triggered, and it detected these as web browsing, but I got a different component back. What caused that behavior? This right here are the exact traces that are from these two different screenshots. Now, some of you might actually know the answer. I didn't get into all the answers. What I'm saying is that if you want to perform a test environment, and if you're going to look at using this tool, we've actually validated that we should expect our systems to behave consistently. In an afternoon, it took me a little bit of time to get them to not do it. It's a terrible sentence, but so then the next question is, if it behaves that way with the web browser, how does it behave with a command line tool when it's going to the exact same site? Or okay, this tool actually got you slightly different results. All right. So think about how your infrastructure is going to respond. So if you want to run a project, whatever your rules are, if you're going to do a real red-blue exercise, you're going to come in, what's the red, what's the blue, and you're going to tell them. When I ran an MSSP shop, we had this done to us. We had 3 out of 17 clients who never announced to us that they were going to be doing their 12 pen tests. I was very, very fortunate. My team caught attackers. One guy caught the attacker in 7 minutes, so he was high. Super excited. Another guy caught the attacker in 13 minutes, and then my third guy caught the attacker in 4 hours. Actually, 3 hours and 55 minutes, which I thought was pretty good. So what are the roles? What are your use cases? Do you want to see just how much you can get away with privilege escalation? Do you want to see if you can detect persistence? Do you want to see if the Windows event collection or whatever tooling you're using to review the processes that are running on a machine and actually help you find those things? How long are you going to let this stuff run? Realize that you breach an attack simulation, an adversary simulation, will identify risk. Should be helping you find blind spots in your enterprise. Should be helping you find blind spots in your monitoring program that dark deep secret corners of the process. Determine where you need help. Determine this honestly. Right? Perform the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, the threats analysis, a little bit of SWAT, a good NDA practice. Refer to the attack matrix, the charts I showed you earlier. Use that as a tool. So how are you going to measure your success if you're going to do adversary simulation? How are you going to measure your success if you train people? I can tell you this. My 2 people that detected my external pen tests went to SANS Sec 511 and passed the test. My other 2 people who did not didn't go. In my mind, that paid for the class. I had measurable proof. That's kind of a rare little serendipity event that I can go back to. You're probably not in that situation. So think about a few things to guide you. What it cannot be measured cannot be managed. And I realize that may sound like a platitude, but I've had a ton of Six Sigma education, and he's really right. If you can't measure it in some way, you can't improve it because you can't determine what the effect was of any improvement. And this is also just as important. This kind of point is reinforced by Carlos Zimmerman's presentation last year. Not everything that counts, or not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. That hurts. So, some of these things are on his preso right here. Really, really good stuff. And Carlos has about the 5 main things that you need. It is an excellent book. Pragmatic Security Metrics. If you buy it, please be careful not to drop it on your foot when you're wearing sandals. It's very painful. I don't want to tell you how I know that, but I've got a ton of metrics in my book on measuring security operations. These are all from real life practical things. Time to sweep the enterprise is one of the most important metrics you can have. If you have a 1,000-person organization with 1,300 endpoints and 200 servers, How long does it take you to check the disk on those machines for a downloaded copy of Windows Netpack? How long will it take? First of all, let me ask you this question. So the problem I just outlined for you is an attacker has a known evil tool they download from GitHub, compiled, executable, ready to go, sitting on your box. I told you it's there. How long would it take all of you guys to sweep your inbox? Any of you know? You have tooling, you have a technical system. You have a staff member who has the chops to write a PowerPoint. There's a technical term, the chops. Write a PowerShell script to explore all the systems and look over the files. As your guy or girl who knows how to write PowerShell, who's pretty sharp with it, realize that doing that linearly, one system at a time, will take a year, at least a month. And they figured out how to write something in parallel. So this is an incredibly important metric. How long does it take us with our suite of technical tools from our $pen to $sign that we built for the last year to validate whether or not there is or is not evil in our enterprise? Can your AV system actually do a business scan for you? I don't know. What tools do you have? How can you do that? If you're looking at using breach and attack simulation of red versus blue teaming to test your security operations functions, think about how long it takes for someone to deal with the case, identify they have something, open up a formal incident, activate your incident response plan. How long does it take for the people to get on the all-hands call after you page them, or I'm sorry, that's not correct. After you texted them, get on the all-hands call at 3:30. If you have 17 people in your IR plan, they're all supposed to be on the all-hands call at 3:30. You texted them all at 3 o'clock. How many of them are actually on here at 3:30? You knock it 100%. Other measures, look at your impact costs. These exercises are really good at determining if you find something you think is evil on a machine and you rebuild that machine. We kept track of this statistic right before we got admin rights taken away from a significant portion of our organization. And what we found is across 28 incidents, through 2011 was when I put these stats together. What we found was across 28 instances, a known virus got on the machine that we thought was serious enough that we wanted to re-image the box. We measured 384 FTE impact hours. So I can tell you the cost of that strategy. I could boil it down to because I kept track of the hours. Timeline reconstruction. When you're doing incident response and you're trying to look at what an adversary is doing and how well the blue team is working and how well it takes the red function to actually exercise the nefarious code and achieve their goal and accurate objective. What is the mean time to decision for your whatever analyst function you have and determine whether it's real or not real? Okay, what is your mean time to compromise? They can knock on the door for a week. But if they can't get in, your mean time to compromise, you never actually had an attack. I had a guy. You did those good the story, right? And this guy had this thing called an H323 server. And they replaced it with a new H323 server. I don't know what an H323 server is. I don't. It has something to do with VoIP and video conferencing. What he did is pulled the old box out of production, put the new box in production, reused the IP address. He did one thing right. He followed the logging policy, and as soon as he configured the box, he had it logged to my center. Within 44 minutes of that machine going online, the Chinese were knocking on his SSH ports more. And within 47 minutes, after 343,000 and some change failed login attempts, they got it. What's the mean time to compromise for whatever situation you're working on? Because that's really what the race begins. You can have a compromise and not get privilege escalation. Sometimes these occur at the same time. Sometimes they take a long time. You can have an end user that is compromised where you have access to the end user's account You can behave like the end user and do things as if you are the end user, but you have not gained elevated access or whatever the objective is. This time value really has a lot to do with your ability to work. So think about these things, how you're going to measure yourself. And in case you're not aware, all of these times for modern adversary, because of the weaponization, the amount of material available, in fact, if you go to YouTube, I'm going to be at it for free from your couch. These are all getting shorter. After action, once your event has occurred, how are you going to grade yourself? How are you actually going to measure how well you did? Whatever your participants are, they should participate, give you some idea of how well they thought they did, what you observed, have people write things down. Incident response can look like a tree. You have tons of different branches. You can do all kinds of different directions. Try to keep your opinion on that. And realize, of course, that incident response skills and the ability of someone with knowledge, skills, and abilities will develop over time. One thing I'll tell you is I've done this a long time. And if you don't do something to exercise an incident response function, skills atrophy, people get sloppy and lazy. Because usually, when you're doing IR, it's usually a collateral duty of a person or an admin. They have to do something like that. Incident reporting is a team sport. We teach this at the range. We actually teach you how to build things. We teach people how to document as they go. I teach them how to actually create a self-documenting screenshot. That is an amazingly important skill, because if you don't have a self-documenting timestamp screenshot, and you got to go back and get it tomorrow, that's called rework. We don't want rework. If you're going to invest the time to do this, make sure you collect things well with a nice professional template. This is an example. I realize, of course, it's small, but we have a nice table of contents. In our range environment, I provide all the attendees 2 complete samples that were written as well as anything I would have ever done myself. And they're exceedingly high rated. The executive summary scores 95 on Grammarly. 95. Have anybody ever used Grammarly and gotten to a 90? Is it easy to get to 95? You don't know. What's the bet? Are you willing to tell us your top score? It's not an easy task to get to 95. Let me tell you, because if you're not a person, if you're not predisposed to writing well, you're trying to write efficiently, and you're not really hip with the whole subject verb thing, you're laughing. Are you like an English major by chance? Writing counts. So you got this, that's your cover page, you got your table of contents, you got your executive summary, you got your nitty-gritty details, you got your business impact analysis, or BIA, and you guys are all crispy, so you know what that means. And you got your root cause analysis. Any ISACA auditors in the world here in the group? You know what a CAP is? We train people to write CAPs for at least 2 scenarios. They're going to get the certification. And you've got whatever. Out of all of this beautiful, glorious, gorgeous, darn great stuff that looks great, what is your executive leader going to read? Anybody want to put your finger on the screen? They stop here. So it all counts to that. And that's it. What time is it? Darn, I thought I was going to go to 10. All right, so I think we've got, I did this talk for Virginia Beach, and they said, hey, it's supposed to be an hour. So I've got until 8. If my ride shows up, I got to go back to Virginia Beach.
So, question. Can anybody get access to the range?
Oh yeah, so it's commercially available. Yeah. And if you want to come down and actually use the range, we do a half-day, no-charge, single injection walk. So you can come down, team. It works best in groups of 3. Because I put 3 people in a classroom. They work in the scenario. They work as a team. It's a documented case. It takes about an hour for me to go through an orientation.
So it's only accessible also.
We have not put together all the processes to do it remotely, all the technologies in place, but there's currently only me running it right now. So anyway, I just haven't had anybody really work with it remotely. Because what you miss in working remotely is you miss the audio communication. The 3 of us sitting and looking at each other and working through a process. So there's another thing that you miss when you use it virtual, and I've seen this happen. I have seen people with 20 years of IT go down the rabbit trail and spend 20 minutes looking at something that has nothing to do with the case. And I try to arrest that behavior. And I really coach people through trying to keep them on track, because I want them to solve the case from beginning to end so they get the full experience. Because we got a lot of digital shit. Young lady?
What would you say the minimum skill set required would be? Could we use it in awareness exercise with say non-security technical professionals?
If you are highly motivated, yes.
Like they have programming skills, but they just software developers and not security.
So I get this question a lot, and we have a variety of answers. We either have a fully guided 26-page, follow the mice, follow the steps, or the 2-page go at it, at different levels of instruction. And we've purposely done that because I want you to have a couple of scenarios to work through. So you, like using ArcSight and the checkpoint, and the fact that this is now 16 stations on the network, or 16 networks, and you don't know any of this stuff, so I try to guide you. You can use it as an awareness exercise. We have a Navy command that actually wants the instructions, and what they've asked us to do is just tell our officer how to do the item, and then coach them through what the item actually means, because they're training to be line managers. We've also had, interestingly enough, we had an auditor from PwC come down, and she actually has the notion that she's going to bring some folks who are objecting to turning on things like Windows Event Forwarding because they think it's going to be punitive. Like, why don't you just come down and turn it on and see how it works on a real life network? Let's cause a bunch of behavior and see if the CPU hardly works. So we do a lot of that stuff too. The answer to your skill set, you really have to have, I think, a couple of years of IT. You should have installed a variety of things. You should have a pretty good idea of how to use an event viewer. It helps if you understand Wireshark, because Security Onion is available at full content packet capture for 5 of 16 segments, which is not what you have in an enterprise, but things like that. You should have a pretty solid skill understanding of the TCP/IP protocol. If you have no idea what DNS stands for, it works against you.
IT professionals.
Yeah, it's really targeted at IT pros. People have been in the business a couple of years. And it really helps if you've had a couple of aha moments, because then you're on guard for having aha moments in the range. I actually, I wasn't kidding when I said I had a couple of people delete the service account. I ran the database service. And then they wanted to figure out, what do we do with that? And I said, well, here's the impact. And like, we can just recreate the account. And I said, what is actually an account? It's the username and the numerical identifier behind that. Oh, we didn't think of that. And I said, yeah. And because you deleted the account, it's Tombstone, and you go get the SIDS in your new account and SID history, and you think that's going to work? They chose to revert the scenario and try again. It was 20 minutes tops. In reverting the environment, which you rated for me, is 4.5 minutes. That's how long it takes to just revert it. And all 48 operating systems are ready to go. It's really cool. Next. Yes, sir.
So you described the red team, the blue team, the purple team, and you said there's a white and green team.
Yes.
Where are those?
Yes.
You didn't describe
The
them.
white team is the official who is running the exercise.
Okay.
Now, as the range officer, if you work with any organization that's doing the range function, you will have a single person or maybe a group of people, and they perform a very particular role. They make sure everything starts, people are oriented, they know how to use the environment, and they answer the questions and are playing the role of what's called site personnel. Because you're walking into my environment and you don't know what the environment's like, you have no idea. So I need to give you, in every classroom group in the room, consistent answers to consistent questions. For instance, in our SQL injection scenario, they say, why do you have 4 websites that have 4 completely different names on the same IP set? It's like, well, the organization you're working on is a web hosting firm, and that's why they have that. And if I gave different answers to different people, it would have a different result. So the site personnel role is the white team role. The green team role is the auditor role. The auditor is really like your internal audit team, your CISA type person, a staff member whose job is to measure and report on risk. That's actually the real job of an auditor, is to measure and report on risk. So they are functioning as an auditor. They may look at the entire process because they may be responding to a corrective action plan. Like if you suffer from a breach and you're publicly traded, one of the things that you will do is you will write a corrective action plan to improve internal education and improve incident response time. The auditor could come to our range environment with a team and say, we're going to run you through 5 scenarios. Did you in fact improve, yes or no? We've actually had this conversation with the group that wants to do this. They want to test people on Monday and Tuesday, run them through 5 scenarios, do something else on Wednesday, and run through all 5 scenarios on Thursday. See just how quickly they can resolve 5 scenarios because they've already seen them once, because that's their measurement of can you improve. That's what a green goal is. To my knowledge, there is no yellow, orange, black. It's just those 5 colors. Yes, sir. Back.
So we had a question on the Zoom that asked about when you were going through some of the tools, are any of them helpful as it pertains to insider threat?
Insider threat. So insider threat is, I would say that is kind of defined as, I got a lot of stuff in there. Insider threat, if you look at what the Carnegie Mellon CERT Guide has defined as insider threat, which is, they actually have a book called The CERT Guide to Insider Threats. It's actually what it's titled. It's based on 11 years of research and over 800 criminal and civil cases. And what they found is your insider is usually somebody who's been passed over for promotion, is disgruntled, has an axe to grind, and actually wants to engage in various activity in the organization. They manifest that behavior by usually committing some form of sabotage on the network. So you could probably use things like the atomic red team tests and cause some sabotage. You have to think about specifically what you want, but the ART will actually give you some sabotage components. Like you could create a bunch of accounts or delete a bunch of accounts. You can use PowerShell Empire as sabotage events. You could very easily use Metasploit as a research and reconnaissance tool, like an attacker would use. Invoke adversary as a PowerShell script function. You probably could meld that a little bit. And Midas Caldera, if you want to set it up. However, Caldera does not respond well at 20 to 22 nodes on the environment. It's really it's a small scale tool. They tell you this because it is a very intelligent engine, and there's only so much horsepower you can go on. That answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, very high. What time is that? We're up.
Any other questions?
I guess 20 minutes. But then my wife shows up. She's gonna come. All right.
You want to present you with the challenge fund?
Awesome. Woo! This is cool.
Thank you very much for. How many of you know where we are? Right here. Okay.
Richmond.
I love Max Potential Business Dollars. And I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to know Kim and to have her support our organization. Kim has a great business model. She takes people that have the desire to learn IT skills and places them with partners in industry in an apprenticeship model instead of outsourcing their low-level projects overseas. She puts the organizations and the apprentice together, and in that manner, she's teaching these individuals that have a passion for IT how to work on projects, how to work on software development, how to work on networks, how to work on cybersecurity. It is a great business model, and I am happy to support her as much as I can. If you have any low-level projects or even mid-level projects that you're outsourcing to a firm overseas, please make sure you contact Kim.
Price and quality. Thank you, Ida.
And for hosting us,
No,
a challenge one.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
What?
I want
You're a
to.
customer.
Customer,
right?
and we, I work in
That's an awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Plus, my daughter works for her as an intern. Yes.
Did not know that.
Yep.
All right,
What? Sorry.
Yeah, sign the sheet.
sign the signs in the back, make sure you sign
Sorry.
in order to get CPE credits. And we have a raffle for, how much is the Amazon gift card? $25 gift card. And Chandler's can't win again.
It's just go online.
This is why I show up.
Hey, everybody online, I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording, but I'll keep up the Zoom.